Well, folks, Tim Johnson here, consultant with Kairos and Associates, working with all of you over these past many months. One of the things that we did here just in the fall was to invite all confirmed members and older at St. Mark's to take the congregational survey. This is the MAPE. It is the Missional Assessment Profile. And my intent here is to do kind of a quick walkthrough on these slides so that perhaps as you have your copy in print with you in hand, you can follow along, but I can provide a little bit of perspective on this as we go. As I said here on the opening sheet or slide there, it is importantly a measurement of your congregation's impact, effectiveness, and potential. As well, it is the beginning of discovery and discernment, not the end of it. You might say a little bit differently, it's the beginning of a conversation, okay? It's not designed to tell you what to do, but rather to reveal where energy and resources can more effectively be placed, that sort of a thing. As well, this is a kind of a snapshot of St. Mark's in a place and time, and it reflects the input of the people who have taken it, right? As well, we know that it in large part reflects the larger congregational disposition or perspectives, but it's a snapshot of those who have taken the survey. It's not a judgment, it's some information and some perspective. This next slide shows you a little bit of a breakdown of who exactly took the MAP survey. 61 people. It was a great turnout. That we look to have about 60% or so of the average weekly worship attendance, and you're right at that 60%, which is where we want to be. Some people feel like, well, we should have more people or everybody taking the survey. But just like when you go to the doctor to have some blood work done, you don't need to have all of your blood taken out in order to get an understanding of the health and vitality of or problems in your body. You need to have a sample. So this is a sample of the whole congregation, and it's a good, healthy sample. You can see the makeup of age groups, education level, household, the tenure of people who took the survey as well. A little bit on the frequency of attendance, and you can see most people who took the survey are really very active in worship. As well, you've got about 3/4 who are pretty close to church, and about 1/4 who are, in that 6 or more miles away. Here gives us a little bit of a snapshot of all the slides that we're going to be looking at, and really to kind of pay attention to the first and the last one. What's circled there looks for strong affirmation. For instance, the statement there is, I believe that God is active in the world today. And here, you can see the vast majority of people agree or strongly agree with that statement. And we would want all of the statements to be some measure of agreement, or ideally that would be the case. And here, what we're really looking for is not just kind of a lukewarm, yeah, I agree with that, but rather you can see that strongly agrees, kind of that fist pumping, yes, absolutely. So when we're over there on that strongly agree, it really says something different than just agree. On that bottom one there, pays attention to the undecided, neither agree nor disagree. You might say that these are people who are on the fence. And so we want to pay attention to those too, especially where the numbers are higher there. Because what we know through our work with congregations is if we focus on something there, whether with leadership or the church does something intentionally different that impacts that particular subject matter, that's going to impact those people who are on the fence. They're going to kind of weigh in one way or the other as things move forward. So we'll look at those two. All right. We understand congregations to be somewhere kind of, we'll call it in the promised land, okay? Kind of it's the place where congregations are doing mission, and we're going to look at 4 different areas. We're going to pay attention to, with the data, we'll plot St. Mark's in one of these particular locations. So the 4 that we have are from the bottom left, puzzled, upper left, stationary, nostalgic, and possibilities, are ways to describe where churches are at. Now, congregations that are in this stationary landscape, shall we call it, it's a place where ministry is happening, but it doesn't feel like much movement or growth is being experienced. It's a location where we say, well, we feel kind of stuck here, okay? That stationary place. Next one is nostalgic. You might say it's a place where the church is enjoying a time of comfort and what's happened, a little bit looking over her shoulder. But not a lot of enthusiasm for what's coming. kind of that idea, well, the vision looks fine from here. Okay, a little bit looking back, maybe a little bit looking forward. The puzzled is a landscape where there's kind of an identity issue, kind of a desire to get things rolling, but not too sure which way it is that we feel like we should go. And finally, possibilities. Churches that kind of locate themselves into this part of the landscape are well positioned to make some bold or some new steps forward. It's that kind of an idea of, well, let's get going. And so here is where we find St. Mark's here, as we see in this promised land here of possibilities, kind of edging in. You can see kind of coming from, it's nostalgic a little bit coming in from the stationary, where we're kind of stuck, a little bit of coming in from puzzled, which way should we go? And a little bit of that idea, but moving into the land of possibilities, which says there's some options in front of us. So we're going to look at how that weighs in. What we understand is that there are two key things, principles, significant factors that impact a church's vitality and possibilities, if you will. One of them is the strength of the sense of belonging. The other one is the strength of energy or excitement in the congregation. So a little bit on these belonging. Here, I feel a greater sense of belonging in this congregation the more I participate in its ministries. Well, that is intuitive, right? And we can see now how we're going to be looking at all of these slides. Off to the right, we've got 18% who strongly agree with that statement. Here we got 62% who say, well, I agree with that. Collectively, that's pretty strong, right? That's 80% who agree with the statement, the an increased sense of belonging, the more I participate. And we get about 16%, 4% on the left, but we've got some on the fence, not too certain about things. In this congregation, I am part of something bigger than myself. Here we've got a strong sense of strongly agree, 30%, agree 48%, collectively. Now this is something we all kind of yearn for, right? Is to be part of something bigger than ourselves. But yeah, we've got about 20-some% who are not quite there, and so we want to pay attention to that. Again, and belonging has something to do with that sense of unity. I'm describing the congregation as a cohesive community, and here we've got about half who agree with that statement. There's no strongly agree here, so we kind of take note of the fact that that's has waned a little bit here. In fact, most congregations about of your size in our database would be ranking somewhere up around 14% on that strongly agree. More people would be saying, yeah, we've got a strong sense of unity here. And here we've got a significant amount, 38%, who are on the fence here, and some not so certain. This, mind you, I think is at least in part, is a byproduct of coming through this 2 years now of pandemic and things being tossed around, things not being completely clear, our sense of being fragmented. We have seen a leveling off of this. So this is kind of a normal thing that churches are experiencing. The extent to which I feel myself now, the first one was describing the congregation. 1H is more of a personal reflection. So pay attention to those when the language changes a little bit. I see myself as an integral part of this congregation. Most people do, but we've got about a third who aren't so certain of that. Here we're going to look at a couple of them on excitement. I believe this congregation is making a difference in people's lives, and here we've got the vast majority of people say yes, St. Mark's is a place that matters, and that's where we want to be. I like telling others what's going on at this congregation. Here we've got about half who say, yeah, I do, and a little bit less than half who are a little bit on the fence with that. Participating in this congregation, very personal statement, energizes me. And we've got most people who say, yeah, we've got almost a fifth who say strongly agree there. And yet we want to pay attention. We've got a quarter who are on the fence, and all told, we've got a third or so on the fence or disagreeing with that. So kind of a lacking of energy or excitement. And again, this can be attributed to any number of things, not the least of them being this last 18 months or so. I invite other people to participate in our church's worship experience. And you can see the statistics on that. And sometimes we don't because we know other people are connected in their faith. Here we're going to look at some of what we call missional landmarks: culture, ministry, practice, readiness, priorities. And we're going to look first at culture. And what do we mean by culture? We're looking at the issues of permeability, respect, and trust. 3C. I feel like a valued part of this congregation, similar to one of the other ones we had. The vast majority of people, 2/3, 3/4, feel valued. That's a high priority. It's easy to engage with ministries of the congregation. Most people would agree with this. Again, think of permeability. Is it accessible? Sometimes we've got people who feel like they could get connected, but they're not entirely too certain how to do that. And this here in this congregation, sharing a difference of opinion is welcomed, a regard of respect here. And we've got some uncertainty here. Sometimes we're a little lukewarm in this when we're not certain that we've debated things, right? That we've been asked for input, maybe on decisive decisions needing to be made and those kinds of things. So sometimes that's why people say, I'm kind of in the middle because I'm not too sure what my reference point is. Sometimes we get in the middle or on the disagree side if there's been some contention or you feel like you're not drawn in or invited. Our congregation respects people with differing views. Again, here we've got most would agree with that, but certainly not everyone. Trust, openness with regard to how decisions are made. This is kind of a transparency question, and here we say, yeah, most people are feeling like there's dialogue that's happening, right? Communication is happening. 3B, leaders in this congregation manage the finances effectively. Here, yes, people are feeling like they're well communicated with. A lot of times when we see that that leans toward the disagree, a lot of times it's a matter of communication. So when things are regularly communicated and they feel open, people feel pretty good about that. Even if there are there's struggles, still openness and communication is so key. When making decisions, the leadership considers the perspectives of the congregation. Hopefully that's been a part of what you've experienced both through the vision team and some strategic planning, through the building team and dealing with some architectural drawings and those things, and as well with the appeal leadership team kind of preparing or thinking about a capital appeal. We hope that you have really felt drawn in and heard and involved in this. Ministry practice. We'll look at a few of these subcategories here. My faith informs my daily behaviors. What's the integration of my time at church with my daily life? And here, St. Mark's is kind of off the charts, very, very strong here, really making that day-to-day connection. And one could argue that this is one of the most important things we ever try to do in the church. Faith is a part of my entire life. And again, St. Mark's is very, very high, exceeding some of the norms even here. My experience at church influences my daily life. We would presume this also to be strong, much reflecting, put in a little bit different terms, some of the other questions that were the couple questions that were pressed prior to this. Our sense of mission is an important component of our decision making. In other words, right? We don't make decisions based upon willy-nilly or people's purely opinion, but really ideally, our mission is really driving decisions. And y'all have been doing some work on this. So this is emerging and growing, I think. And nonetheless, we've got 3/4 just about who would agree with that statement. Next one, as a congregation, we have a clear sense of our purpose. We've got a lot of on the kind of in the middle there. So some interesting thing, right? Here we think our mission drives us, and yet we're not entirely sure what our sense of purpose is or maybe our intended outcomes. These are being wrestled with. So some growth to be had here. And yet we've got this next one, which is a strong statement of affirmation. I believe in the mission of this congregation. In other words, I believe in who we are and what we're about. We need to crystallize and clarify some of this better, but I'm feeling good about this. So kudos, clarity, purpose. Here, shifting gears a little bit on faith formation. My involvement in service opportunities through the church are important to my faith development, right? There's a connection here. Most people say yes, some a little bit maybe on the fence, maybe because they're not doing it, right? That could be maybe an opportunity to make those explicit connections. Here are the faith reasons why we do this, right? We want to be reminded, what are Jesus' teachings on helping in the community? What are Jesus' teachings on faith nurture of children, right? What are the scripture foundations for the care that we provide? Sometimes just articulating those things can help people to say, okay, I understand how when I'm in service here and I'm giving of my abilities, my time, my skills, how that can help me to grow in my faith. 2G, being involved is important to my faith development. Most people say yes, but again, we've got people on the fence here. I think we want to know a little bit more about that. Sometimes an outcome of the MAP are some notes that we take to ourselves where we say, we don't exactly know why that result is that result. And we might say there are a few things where we want to make some further investigation. Okay, so we got some questions. We're not going to go back to the right and regather around all these, but there might be a couple, 3, 4 where we say we want to learn a little bit more. 2K, my experience with our congregation's worship plays an important part in nurturing my faith. Now, this is a very personal question about the relationship between worship and one's faith. And here we look like we're pretty strong here. We've got a fourth that strongly agree. We've got half, more than half then, agree with that. Next one on educational opportunities. Again, we've got about just over a third who are a little neutral on this. Might be some question here, but I can tell you across the board, this is not a strong indicator, not a strong response on the part of most congregations. And in fact, you're stronger here. St. Mark's is a stronger response on the educational opportunities on 2N than most are. 2B, my involvement in this congregation inspires me. Right? Oops, let me see if I'm on the right slide. Okay, yep. I have developed and experienced meaningful relationships in this congregation. One of the important things here that's worth saying is whenever churches have a focus on small group ministry, it comes off the charts in terms of what people talk about. And energy is well put, well invested. And here you can see relationships are very central to St. Mark's. And I would extend that to say, it's one of the gifts you have to share with others. This is a strength for you as you consider other outreach things. Who we are in our friendliness, our love, our care, our compassion. These are strengths God's given us to utilize for outreach, for witnessing, for service, those kinds of things. 2L is another one on the matter of unity and being on the same team. A lot of times there's a relationship between a sense of unity and whether we've got a shared kind of focus. And that's that missional clarity piece. Always connects one to the other. My involvement in this congregation inspires me. Very personal question here. And for most people, 80% say yes, and we've got some who are not there yet. What can we do to pay attention to people who are not feeling so connected or inspired in that way? The worship experience inspires me, and that's very specific. Same question. Moving on, though, to a different element. Here on readiness, embracing change. Perhaps one of the most important questions that the church has to this today, not just St. Mark's, all churches, is are we fundamentally open or are we fundamentally resistant to change? Whatever be the change, right? I mean, change needs to be missional focused. But are we on board or are we resistant? That will dictate much in terms of church vitality and the capabilities of a church growth and movement into the future. Willing to take risks to fulfill our mission? Undecided, and some disagreement here. Absolutely something to pay attention to. A little bit more conversation needed here, I think. Same with the next one. New ideas are supported in this congregation? We're not sure. A little bit nebulous for St. Mark's. Again, I think some further investigation is necessary here. A little bit of a change here. Challenges in this congregation seen as opportunities to grow. We've got now about half who say, yeah, I think that that's true, and we've still got some here on the fence. I think these are noteworthy for the coming months and year or two for St. Mark's. What are we willing to risk for? Where are we going to put ourselves on the line for God's mission? Here we've got some on urgency. It's important that we make changes in order to live out our mission. Take note of these statistics. We've got 80%, over 80%, who say we need to make some changes to live out our mission. As the vision and mission team was doing and presenting some information there, we need to check in and say, are those the things, right, that we're talking about here in 4B? And 4D too, it's important that we make changes in the next 6 months. Here maybe we're a little more apprehensive about the timeline, but again, most people say, yeah, we're needing to make some things happen. I believe God is active in the world today. There are ways to learn God's truths outside of Scripture. You can look at those statistics. Here, God works through me, very personal, to bring out about God's mission. Again, this is personal. I think this goes back to some of the other reflections on the relationship between what happens to me and with me in my faith community at St. Mark's and my day-to-day, you call it maybe Monday through Saturday life. And again, that's a good, strong connection here. We've got a number of priorities here coming up, and they're kind of lumped into three different, each one leans into one of three different sorts of priorities. Sustainability. Sustainability priorities reflect a culture that sees the need to work on keeping the organization viable. Focusing on growing numbers and resources is kind of a hope. This is kind of sustaining things, right? More than we just need to be about mission no matter what. So kind of being a little maybe apprehensive, watching our P's and Q's, not that's bad or good, but that's what sustainability is. Impact. The priorities that are marked with an I coming up have to do with seeing the outcomes, right? Additional energy and attention in terms of increasing our effectiveness. Entrepreneurial have to do with kind of how the church envisions itself being about God's work in maybe some new ways. Okay, I'll look at a few of these. These are harder for you, well, to see on the screen here, but you can see these and take note of them. I would just note that the first two are the sustainability ones, which growing worship attendance, attracting more members. Yep. But what would it be if we said our mission was the top priority and other things will take care of themselves, right? I think that's a big question. Okay. That third one, helping people experience God as the transformational force in their lives, is way high on the list. So we'll take some mulling and some conversation with leadership. 6A, the congregation encourages me to be a good financial steward. Mostly yes. Important for me to give finances outside of my congregation. Mostly yes. Given what St. Mark's is doing, which best represents what I'm anticipating doing this next year? Kudos, we've got half or so are saying more or significantly more. Amen. I hope so, with some of what may be coming, right? Changing church is part of it, but also perhaps some building improvements and a capital appeal that will take some greater generosity. What influences my giving? You can take note of these items, and maybe one of those is more resonant for you. A breakdown of income and the giving for you to take note of. And points of interest, I regret is not on the slide that you've got here. I'm going to tell you what they are. Okay. One of them is an emerging missional focus, and mission is important. That's happening at St. Mark's. I've got that way up at the top of the list of what I see to be important. There's a strong relationship between involvement and a sense of belonging. Want to feel more belonging? Well, be involved, right? Those are intuitive. We need to connect those dots even more as we go forward. About struggle, about half struggle with this matter of opposing views, expressing them, not sure if we're valued. Again, something to wrestle with through it a little bit there. Over 80% believe in the mission of St. Mark's. We want to work that. That's engagement, that's involvement, satisfaction, that's joy, those kinds of things. 87% believe or experience that relationships matter. Huge. Use that for the sake of moving forward as a church. Only 32% said that taking risks, that we're willing to take risks, okay? What might that look like to have that be different? And yet we've got 80% who say some changes are necessary. That's some important conversation to be had. And some choices about which of those 4 landscape locations is going to dictate, draw, characterize, energize St. Mark's moving forward. Is it going to be looking back over your shoulder at nostalgia, the times in the past, the glory years? Is it going to be kind of that being stuck place? Yeah, just going to kind of settle into the middle. Is it is it going to be kind of confusion where we're not sure which way to go? We're kind of in there a little bit, right? We're making some of those choices, or into that land of possibility. So that's the place we're praying. Oh, here I do have them. As I'm clicking forward, here we go. Okay. So I guess you've got them on your sheet too. Important to pray about these, discuss. And here you are, St. Mark's in Wapakoneta. All right, about 25 minutes here, and hope this is helpful for your personal understanding and diving into the nuances of St. Mark's ministry, but also for some planning and those kinds of things and moving forward. Blessings to you. I look forward to seeing you soon.